So let's dive a little bit deeper then into our theory of social stratification. And I'm going to do this by going through this study in which researchers looked at different types of intelligence, and they looked at men and how likely men were to marry based on their level of intelligence. So what they did was they tried to separate out whether intelligence was important for a successful relationship, or whether intelligence was simply related to how rich a man was, and therefore that made a relationship more successful. So they were trying to separate out these two things of, a man who can provide resources and wealth and security for a woman versus intelligence as alone as an attractive factor, essentially. So the researchers, they took IQ data from men, and it was 190,000 men, and they recorded the results of IQ, so the intelligence, marital status, so whether or not the men was married, and income, so how much the men earned. And the researchers found that men were more likely to be married and to still be married 4 years later if they were higher in intelligence. So higher IQ men were more likely to be married than lower IQ men. And this is in agreement, this isn't necessarily consistent with our results that we found. However, it doesn't directly conflict with the results of our original study. It's just a slightly different way of interpreting it. And then they looked at whether income or wealth was a factor that could potentially explain why this IQ and marriage relationship existed. So they controlled for the influence of a man's income on his marriage prospects. So basically, they evened out all the income. So, it didn't matter if a man was rich or poor or average in terms of his income and wealth. They just wanted to see whether it was intelligence that would affect their likelihood of being married and staying married. What they found was that a man's wealth did have an important effect on his likelihood of marrying. In fact, they found that wealth was more influential than intelligence. However, an intelligent man was more likely to have married and to have stayed married regardless of his wealth. So this is really important and something that we really need to consider when we're answering our question. So they found that wealth, or how much money a man has, actually had more of an effect on their likelihood of being married than just intelligence alone. However, that isn't to say that intelligence wasn't an important factor, and intelligent men were still more likely to marry and, crucially, to stay married, regardless of how wealthy they were.